Hi, my name is Steve Brining. I'm from Acronis, and welcome to our Information Security series. Today we're going to be talking about multi-factor authentication. We're going to be talking about exactly what is authentication, different authentication factors, why is this important to know, is it foolproof, the benefits of using, and then some recommendations to help you with multi-factor authentication. Again, my name is Steve Brining. I'm a partner technology evangelist here at Acronis. Been with the company for about 4 years. Been in the cybersecurity industry for a little over 25 years, mostly on the manufacturing side, and presently a commanding officer in the Arizona Army National Guard. So, what is authentication? It's a process to assure and confirm a user's identity. Before accessing systems information, you got to prove that identity and have permission to access. Associated incoming request with a set of credentials. Now, identification. User claims their identity. That's a username or email address as an example. Then you need to prove that identity with some authentication, which would be the password. So when you claim both the identity and a mechanism to authenticate, that is considered your credentials. You cannot have access control if you can't identify a user. There's different authentication factors. Something you know, like a password or a PIN. Now, these are, out of all of them, deemed the least secure because it increased security. You can reduce that by having password complexity. Something you have. It's something you physically hold. It's often used with something else like a PIN or a password. You can have USB security keys, common access cards, otherwise known as CAC readers. In the National Guard, we have CAC readers, and we have to insert our IDs in there. And then it asks us for a PIN with that. And then finally, something you are. This could be fingerprints, retinal scanners, voice recognition, facial recognition, even iris scanners. You got to be a little cautious of that one due to medical privacy issues. I've seen a lot with fingerprints. Keep in mind, these cannot be rotated once compromised. Think about it. Pretty hard to change your fingerprints. So, another way to look at it, knowledge, something you know. Possession, something I have in my possession, and something you are, something inherent to you. Now, two-factor authentication is a subset of the multi-factor authentication we just went through. If you use all three factors, that's considered multi-factor authentication, but two-factor authentication is the most common subset that you see. Now, keep in mind that while this is an extra step in the authentication process, it's a certain amount of minimal time, but security gets increased. So that a little extra time will help with an overall security posture for your organization. Why is this important to know? Well, think about it. Google, you can have one password that gets access to email, calendars, YouTube, and other apps with just one password. As a matter of fact, in 2017, they admitted hackers stole about 250,000 web logins each week. Healthcare, changing medical records to bill fraudulent companies. Altered records can also impact your healthcare and even your personal credit. Now, most hacking-related breaches are due to stolen or weak passwords. It's all about risk reduction. Now, is it foolproof? No. Your phone can get water damaged or general damage. It's pretty hard to get SMS codes from that. Or if the phone loses power and there's no way to charge, you don't get your codes. You put your USB keys in the laundry or they get misplaced, it's pretty hard to get the codes. Now, if you can reset without access factors, well, so can a hacker. Hackers can set up or reconfigure two-factor authentication to keep folks out of accounts. Biometrics, they get compromised, like your fingerprint, well, that's kind of for life. Now, keep in mind that some may not be comfortable giving fingerprints to a company in order to do biometrics. Hackers can steal your phone number and redirect codes. And SMS services out there, you need to trust the service to share phone numbers. Benefits to using this. Well, it helps secure against ID theft via stolen passwords. Keylogging, for example, is secretly recording keystrokes on a keyboard. Phishing is fraudulently asking a victim for sensitive information, say via an email, SMS, or a phone call. Farming, that's installing malicious code onto a device that redirects user to a fraudulent website where they'll go ahead and enter the sensitive information there. So often referred to as phishing without the lure, so the lure being the imposter's malicious email. Weak passwords out there. OWASP out there found that 123456 password and QWERTY, which is right across on the keyboard there, it's one of the most commonly used passwords globally. And Larry Ponemon of the Ponemon Institute, early 2020, found that over 50% of IT professionals reuse passwords across different workplace accounts. Helps mitigate usage of unmanaged devices. If you have a personal device, it's having less secure internet connection, accessing company networks, multi-factor authentication will help you there. It also helps with other security measures to do their job properly. Analogy, if you have a back entrance open to the house, you're putting a deadbolt on the front door when the back door is completely wide open. It increases employee flexibility and productivity. Password policies are in place, but then you forget passwords from time to time. So when you hit forget password, instead of just giving you a new password, multi-factor authentication helps there. And from a compliancy standpoint, there are many state laws that require companies to have strong authentication processes in place, especially if you're handling sensitive financial or personal information. Multi-factor authentication will help with identity and access management solutions like SOX and HIPAA. It also helps protect against social engineering, phishing, or password brute force attacks if credentials are stolen or they're weak. It can also help against bot-related attacks. Employees using their own devices, bring your own device. Well, think of open Wi-Fi networks. Two-factor authentication helps attempts with stealing or phish for a username and a password via the open Wi-Fi network. Man-in-the-middle attacks. Two-factor authentication doesn't allow hackers to spoof push notifications to a personal device, even if the password gets compromised by something what they call a man-in-the-middle attack. One password across many accounts. Two-factor authentication will still give you an added layer of security via push notifications, even if one is using the same password across multiple accounts. Malware email attachments. Even if one would fall prey to malware attachments, one can protect their login credentials by confirming every login attempt accessing their account. And then also with cloud storage, two-factor authentication will give cloud users the ability to validate every login attempt with their personal device, no matter where they are in the world. This becomes a choke point for organizations. You can use it to secure data in the cloud. It does reduce time consuming password resets. For your help desk, it helps reduce that burden there. And then with remote workers, it encourages productivity, safely accessing corporate systems from any device or location without putting sensitive data at risk. It can also create frustration to hackers, yet many service providers still risk things by a password-only approach. Now, hackers, it is appealing to attack service providers out there because one attack can compromise many service provider clients. So say a service provider, your RMM or remote management software, they get access to that, which then gives access to client systems. Service providers, you get credibility intact here because service providers are now a radar for cyber criminals, and it gives a sense of security and comfort to your clients and prospects because you have admin access to their machines. It also helps prevent security incidents, which helps prevent remediation costs. Multi-factor use, because a single factor by itself is not enough. Most popular is user-chosen password, but there's two challenges with that. Weak passwords, susceptible to what they call dictionary attacks or brute force attacks as well. And finally, easier to steal, especially with that phishing, logging, or the man-in-the-middle attacks. So a recommendation, it's a balancing act. TOTP, you might see, that's called time-based one-time password. Using an authenticator app is good. As a matter of fact, Microsoft did urge users to abandon telephone-based multi-factor authentication solutions, like one-time code sent to an SMS and voice calls, and instead replace it with newer MFA technologies like app-based authenticators. Microsoft has one, Google has one, there's others out there. Careful keeping backup codes if you lose or break a device. Signing in with multiple devices might help you. And don't just rely on security questions as a two-factor method. If the site requires them, Treat like a second password. Store answers in some reputable password manager out there. It's unwise to answer the questions directly. Drop-down questions, many are easy to dig up on a person, like the street you grew up on. And finally, use multi-factor authentication whenever possible, but especially relating to sensitive data. I do recommend using password managers, as that will really help you from a recommendation standpoint. So I hope this helps you today with understanding about multi-factor authentication, the different types there are, and the benefits to it, as well as the recommendations. Thanks for watching.